Okay. So awesome. Thanks everyone for coming to the Transfer Panel Lunch Talk. As our department is home to many transfer students, we want to take this time to provide advice for future students based on our experiences with this transition. I'm inviting several community college students here. Some of them came, others will be watching via the recording later on. And our main speakers for today are several students from our department who are current or former transfer students from Nova and Miami-Dade Community College. But first, we will start with some advice and comments from Joe, our undergraduate advisor at GMU, and he's advised many transfer students, including myself as an undergrad. So while he gets started, I'm going to pop the link for the question form in the chat. Feel free to either submit questions or unmute or raise your hand or put in the chat whatever works best for you. So go ahead, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Jenna, and thank you for being here, everyone. Appreciate it. So I'm going to be brief. I just wanted to say that it's never too early for you to approach us at GMU and to get involved in GMU. So if you think you might be interested in ultimately doing a bachelor's degree in physics or astronomy, then we want to hear from you as soon as you think that. So if that's the first day at community college, great. If that's a year in, that's fine too, whenever. But we're eager to hear from you, and we can provide a lot of support. We can help you select your courses at community college. We usually recommend you take at least one course here at Mason while you're in community college, if it's possible. And so we can help you with that. And we can provide resources to you to help you academically, particularly in your physics courses. So we like to do that. Plug you into the groups and activities that are here on campus. And so that way it's good for your educational experience while you're still in community college. And it means when you transfer here, you're already sort of plugged in to the community. So it's less of an adjustment for you if you do that. And you can do research too. We're happy to get you involved in scientific research while you're in community college at any moment, really, anytime, which is a great opportunity for you to explore and see if this is really what you want to do or not. And so, like I said, please contact me. I'm an advisor on both physics and astronomy. We have other advisors in physics who would also be very happy to talk with you. And if you ultimately decide you don't want to come to GMU or you don't want to do physics or astronomy, no problem, right? We just want you to make the right choice for you, whatever that is. We're not going to be upset, if we've been working with you for a year or two and you don't decide to join us. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Jenna.
Okay. So I guess we can first start with just everyone on the panel, if you want to introduce yourself and say a little about your time at Nova and where you are now.
Okay. My name is Kyle Nixon. I did 2 years at Nova from, I think 2017 to 2019. That sounds right. It's been a while. I got my associate's mathematics with specialization in sciences, and I transferred here, and I'm working on my bachelor's currently, and I'm doing research investigating some quantum mechanical phenomenon, which has been fantastic.
Hi, I'm Nicole Afrigola. I did my associates at Nova in general sciences. I originally started off there, then transferred to GMU and decided to finish some more of my general education credits back at Nova before I transferred back to GMU last semester, to where now I'm getting my bachelor's and finishing up hopefully in the fall of 2021 this year in astronomy.
Hi, I'm Kathryn Fernandez. I went to Miami-Dade, so I dual enrolled before I was officially part of the Honors College, but I got my associates in 2017, and then I transferred to Florida International University, and then after I got my bachelor's, technically transferred to George Mason, but it's kind of different for grad school.
Hey, I'm Zach. I went to Nova for about 3 years. I got an associate's in general studies. I was one class away from math when I got accepted to GMU, so I just transferred anyways with general studies instead. It was a really fun process to do, and I'm still a little salty because they started the dual enrollment thing with GMU just after I passed the qualification mark in terms of credits. But that was something that they started at Nova that I really would recommend if for any transfer students going to GMU.
Darwin?
Hold up. Oh, my bad. I got like bad internet, so I was like, it's delayed.
Okay.
It was like stuttering as soon as I put on video for a second. I'll probably switch to my iPad later, so you guys can see my faces. But my name's Darwin. I graduated from Nova in 2019. Went from 2016 to 2019. I got my associates in engineering and mathematics. But before that, I was actually just English and music. So I made like a really big switch. And then when I came over here to GMU, that's when I decided I wanted to do engineering and physics specifically. And that's kind of how I've been leading on with so far this whole time here at GMU. Nova is definitely useful. It definitely helped me kind of get all the prerequisites. So as soon as they come into GMU, everything's kind of just focused on my major, which is really, really cool for me at least.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to go through and ask some of the questions that were already submitted and pulled from other places. So first, how and when should I get recommendation letters from faculty in my community college?
So are we just working like right from left for this panel? Or
You're all in a grid right now. You can just talk whenever.
okay. My advice for asking for recommendation letters is do it as early as possible, especially if they're like doing research work or something right now. There's a lot of application work that they have to do for their own like things. So asking as early as possible as you can helps your professors, your teachers have the time that they need to help you out.
Yeah, and just to add to that, at least from my experience, there were only a few faculty members that were kind of known to be the ones that write really good letters. And that means that there are tons of students that go to them. So the earlier, the better. And I think I even had one professor that she had a limit, like she wouldn't take more than like 10 or 15 students that she would write letters for because she took the time to like look at your transcript and all like learn your story to be able to write about you. So to just make sure that you're forming connections with your professors in your classes as you're going through them, and then just kind of like make a mental note about someone that you think would be able to write you a really good letter. And like Kyle said, just ask as early as possible and make sure to follow up too, because they're busy and you don't want them to like accidentally forget.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that because a lot of what I did when it came time for getting recommendation letters is I reached out to a lot of the professors that I networked with, either through my job as an orientation leader or through any of the programs that I was at Nova, be it STEM Club or Green Club. I got to know a lot of professors there, and once they have that social rapport with you, there are plenty of professors who are more than happy to assist you with getting a recommendation letter. So you just have to bring up the courage and just ask, and sooner is always better.
Okay, some of you brought this up in your little introductions to yourselves, but did any of you join the Nova Mason Advanced program? And if so, what is the difference between that and applying the normal way as a transfer student?
I came up through the Mason Advanced program. And as far as I'm aware, the primary difference is that the credits are essentially a one-to-one, and they automatically fulfill what's referred to as the Mason core, which is all of the stuff that you need
They're
before you
electives.
really advance into your bachelor level courses. I think when I transferred, none of my classes needed to be separately checked or anything. They all just went into the slots that they were supposed to. And there was only 2 classes that I needed to take that were considered part of Mason Core in order to basically move beyond into my upper level. But because I had so much of it already fulfilled, I could immediately start taking my bachelor's level courses. I think it was the composition course related to my degree and an elective that I needed to take.
Wait, is the advanced program what replaces the the guaranteed admissions?
No. So you don't have to do advanced to get that advantage that Kyle was just describing. Yeah, as long as you do the
Oh, okay.
guaranteed admission, you'll get that advantage.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if I
So
remember
maybe I just lied.
correctly, advanced was where you became both a Nova student and GMU student at the same time, if I'm remembering that correctly, Joe?
That's approximately true. So basically, if you join advance, then what happens is you're on a track to where you're planning to transfer to GMU, and you're assigned a mentor at Nova. And that's a person who's going to work with you while you're at Nova and while you're at GMU as well, the whole way through, like an academic mentor, essentially. So I think that's the main difference in terms of, whether you get your Mason core courses satisfied and so forth. That's independent of advance. Basically, advance is supposed to provide you with this mentorship to help you all the way through, the whole experience.
Okay, ignore everything I just said.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. It's been a hot minute since I've had to advertise this as my job as orientation leader. But if I remember correctly, like you said, confirmed, you're both a GMU student and Nova student. And I believe you could take GMU classes for Nova price, if I'm remembering correctly. Again, it's been a hot minute.
So that's a really good question. So, and this is a question I've tried to clarify too. So advance is a relatively new program. And I actually think, believe it or not, that you end up paying more to take GMU credits if you do advance than if you don't. Not 100% sure about that, but even if you're not in advance, there's a thing called the Washington Consortium. And as a Nova student, you can take courses at GMU and pay Nova tuition. I think if you join advance, there's another layer of bureaucracy that supersedes that and leads to a higher tuition price, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But you can take courses at GMU whether or not you're in advance.
One last question too. I like how we're all the ones asking too. It's for the advanced program, because this is relatively new. I know a lot of stuff they're still trying to figure out. Are you still required to finish the degree as well prior to transferring to GMU?
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you,
Okay.
but I would say that if you are, just drop out of advance. If you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Basically, I think the main thing about advance is this mentorship thing. That's the main benefit of advance, is it gives you this mentorship thing. Is it a huge advantage? It could be, but probably not if you just reach out to the academic advisors at GMU anyway, So, yeah, it's a new program. I don't know much about it, but I do think all the main advantages you can get without going through advance.
Yeah, a lot of the thing. Oh, go ahead, Darwin.
Oh, I was gonna say, so like personally, I went through the GAA program. So for me, to get qualified for the guaranteed admissions for GMU from Nova, you have to finish the degree you have to finish the degree completely. But the only problem is a lot of specific, depending on what degree you're doing, a lot of these classes don't transfer over one-to-one at all, and they just count as an extra elective that you might not even use whatsoever. Like personally, I think I have like 30 credits that are not in use whatsoever. They're just specific engineering courses that are required for an engineering degree, but they don't apply specifically to my degrees. So it's something you might want to take into account even if you're doing these programs, because if your goal is anyway to transfer to GMU, you might as well just be as efficient as possible and not waste as many classes and go directly into what you can.
Yeah, that's the big advantage of the GAA is that it doesn't matter what those one-to-one correspondences are as far as the Mason core goes. It still matters for your major though. Okay. So it's still a consideration there. But that's another reason why I really recommend you talk to us, the advisors here first, because we can steer you into the courses that you're going to need and steer you away from the courses that will just transfer in as general electives. Even if it comes in as a general elective, it still counts towards the 120 credits you need to graduate, but it might not satisfy specific degree requirements. So yeah, always best to talk to an advisor, make sure you're taking the courses that are going to transfer over in the most efficient way when you get here.
Yeah, when it comes to advanced, like I said, it's been a hot minute since I've had to do my whole advertising spiel regarding that when I was working as an orientation leader. But from what I remember, you count as both a Nova student, GMU student, and then there was a certain thing that would allow you to take GMU classes while still being at Nova. So I would recommend talking with the advisors, both at Nova and at GMU, because they will know more of the specifics on that. But I do know it's a highly recommended program, but it is a fairly new one because it was added in like I think halfway when I was at Nova, like when I was a year and a half into my associates. So again, I would recommend speaking with the advisors both at Nova regarding that as well as GMU, because again, it's a fairly new program and I don't remember a lot of the specifics. I just remember there are a lot of benefits to it.
So we actually hit several questions in that tangent. So I'm going to skip ahead to things basically about the actual transferring process and starting at your new school. How do your classes at the transferring institution compare to community college classes? Talking about content, workload, and expectations, and what are some best practices for succeeding in those classes?
I guess I can talk first. So mine was kind of fairly difficult actually, because I'm doing 2 degrees. So most of my courses actually had Joe warn me. I think my very first semester, I came in, I finished all my freshman and sophomore year courses, so I was immediately placed into junior level courses. It's definitely a jump in terms of, it's not difficulty because everything is about the same as what you would expect from a class. And it's nothing that you haven't seen before. It's just more of everything's now focused on what you've learned a lot of the time. And so it's very applied right away. So especially for the physics majors, most people talk about having to take like the 301, 303, 305 right away in the same semester usually. And on top of that, I had to take like an extra 3 other courses for my engineering degree that they told me the same thing. There's a fairly sequence. And that's where Joe told me, like, I don't know if you should do that and delay it. But it's just a lot of time management. Everything is about the same way that you would expect, but a lot of it is more engaging now because you'll see a lot of professors start talking to you personally because they start seeing that you're actually part of the program that's on the higher level, and they can kind of start talking to you, be a little bit more technical of what's going on. You can kind of see a little more engagement compared to Nova sometimes too, depending on if your availability and how well you're willing to like go to like office hours and talk to the professors just in general. At least for me, it was.
To kind of build off of what Darwin's saying, so first off, I just want to preface that I transferred during the spring, which is kind of off because just the way that the physics department in particular is structured, they kind of cycle through classes. So I did not have this same like sequencing of classes. Like I took thermodynamics before I took electrostatics. So I think generally for the classes you're going to see an increased rigor and, like Darwin mentioned, an increased like sort of focus on the practicality of things. But there are some specific classes like 305 in particular, that even though they're necessarily 300 level courses, they demand a more extensive rigor to them than might just necessarily be expected. Like 301, 303 aren't going to be on the same level of workload or intensity as 305.
I definitely noticed a large shift of the course load from moving from Nova to GMU. Not necessarily, it seemed that the emphasis on tests started to move away from being at Nova to coming to GMU, to where the emphasis was definitely on learning material and being able to apply it more in the work that you are assigned, as opposed to 2 major tests a semester. I found a lot of great success in building myself a timeline when I came to GMU, noticing I had, a lot more assignments due. So the second the syllabus hit the websites, I would comb through them, find the dates for when everything was due, stick it in a main calendar in order to really know how much I have to start working beforehand to get the assignments due when possible, as opposed to maybe a little more flexibility I felt I had at Nova.
Yeah, I found something similar. So when I transferred, I had basically taken what is considered the easy classes. So all of the prereqs were done, and all that I had left were upper division level credits. So like classical, EM, quantum, like thermal, like stuff like that. So, and I also was required to take a specific number of credits. I think I had to take like 15 credits a semester. So that made it very, very hard. And I since I had transferred into the honors college, I had to keep my GPA at a certain level. But I found, like what Nicole was saying, definitely trying to schedule everything and set yourself up for success as best as you can. But I found that it was a little bit easier too, because I had spent a lot of time taking lots of different science classes at my college before I transferred. And if you really learn how to study in a way that works for you before you transfer, that's really going to help you, because you're not going to have as much free time, or just because you have extra assignments that you usually are not used to handling. If you know what works for you, you know when you should be taking breaks, and you're kind of used to that, it really, really helps. But the workload increased because I only had hard classes left. I had other people that were technically in the same year as me. They were juniors, but they were taking like maybe classical mechanics, maybe quantum, but they had like social science electives that they were taking to try to balance out their course load. And I just didn't have that option. So.
Yeah, as a transfer student, especially if your degree lines up right and wipes out a lot of the electives for the degree, you'll end up taking almost solely core courses, and so that you can expect a bit more in terms of course load in regards to that. I will agree that 305, not all classes are equal. I've had 305 described to me as being kind of like the hardest undergrad course that you can take for the degree. And personally, I could say that's somewhat accurate. I've yet to compare it to the 400 level courses, so it's still up for debate. But it is, in terms of 300 level courses, definitely one of the tougher ones that you'll be taking. For me personally, when I transferred over, I had almost all my electives already taken care of with my transfer credits. So I was taking almost entirely core courses. So my first semester was classical, so 301, 303, 30, and 305, plus English 302. So you'll be taking a lot of core courses, and you will see that more social. I want to say like the classes are going to be more close knit in terms of just socially, because by the time you're getting to the 300 level courses, this is around the time that you're figuring out where you're wanting to specialize, and you'll be seeing a lot smaller class loads. Especially not necessarily for the 300 level courses, but definitely for the 400 level courses. Like for instance, Joe, in relativity, we have like what, 12 students?
No, I think we have more like double that, don't we? I think we have
Yeah,
around.
we've got like 24.
Yeah.
24.
That's
Yeah.
I might be thinking. I might be thinking of quantum then.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I know one of the two 400 level courses I'm taking this semester is like very small.
But I think what Zach is trying to say is that as you advance, especially as you hit the 300 level courses, as you hit the 400 level courses, the community becomes very tight knit. There's like, I think, 80 physics students and the department. Everybody pretty much knows everybody on some level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live at Mason. For like the first year of my degree, I didn't really interact with people all that much just because that's the kind of person I am. I still know basically everybody in the physics department on some level. I can, point to somebody and go, oh, I took this class with them. This is how well they did. This is their strengths. These are the things that they struggle with. And people could probably do the same thing for me. And that's sort of a huge bonus when it comes to these classes where the rigor is really difficult. Granted, the whole COVID situation makes sort of studying and working together more difficult in some aspects, but that sort of tight-knitness for a community really helps if you're like, say you're struggling for something in 305, right? There's 80 people, that you can talk to that can probably go, oh yeah, I screwed up in the same way. Here's how you fix this issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kyle helped a lot with my point because before the pandemic started, we had this little spot called the Physics Lounge that a lot of the students would like to hang out in, and there were tons of students that would be more than happy to either they were higher level students willing to help you with the lower level courses, or they were students that you were taking the class with and you would work on the problem together with on the big whiteboard. So unfortunately, we don't quite have that with the pandemic going on, but we do have a Discord where we all work together on as students that kind of substitutes for that. So there's a lot of close-knitness between students because, again, by the time you're reaching 300, 400 level courses, you're somewhat committed in going into that direction. Like it's not to say that you can't retreat, but you're almost done with the degree, so there is some level of commitment already.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would just agree that, finding a group or at least like just a handful of students that you have the same classes with that you can work on problems with together is really, really useful. I definitely struggled with that because the environment that I transferred into was very, very competitive. So there were a lot of superiority complexes and stuff like that. But I was still able to find like one or two people that would work with me, and that helped a lot, and it kind of eased the workload a little bit. But I did want to mention something about like transferring credits that I think was touched on like in the advanced program question. So not all transfer institutions will accept your transfer credits. Like I was told that you have to save every single syllabi from every class you've taken, because when I applied to different schools, I had to like scan and upload them so they could look and see if it matched the way that they teach their courses. And I know a lot of people that transfer to different schools, they even had to retake like physics 1 and physics 2 because they just didn't like the way that they didn't like, or they didn't use the same textbook. A lot of the times that's also a reason why they reject your credits. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you know people that have transferred to that specific school, you can ask them, and then you can kind of like take that into consideration when you're applying there, just knowing that you might have to retake kind of like a year's worth of classes, or you can go to an institution that typically like has an articulation agreement or something where you know that they accept the majority of your credits, or at least count them as electives.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remember that's another reason it's a good way to transfer from Nova to GMU, because they have that agreement. So they have a list where they compare. You'll have on one side, it'll have the Nova course numbers, and then on the other side, it'll have the GMU equivalents. And so they already have that agreement there. So that is a good point to bring up.
Yeah, for Nova, we have all the credits in the corresponding courses here. If you're coming from other schools, the way it usually works is the first student who transfers in that course in history, we have to review it and see what is it is equivalent to. Once that review is done, it's done for all time, doesn't have to be repeated. So we do have a large number of courses from schools all over the country for which we have that. And if we don't, then we do have to see a syllabus just so we can make that comparison and figure out what class it is. And I wanted to also comment just on the question of the jump in the classes from what you saw at Nova to GMU. I would say it's the same for students who are at GMU the whole time. So the jump from 200 to 300 level is a big jump in difficulty. But whether you're coming from Nova 200 to 300, or you were at GMU the whole time going 200 to 300, you're all in the same boat. Okay, there's no difference between the 100 and 200 level courses at GMU versus Nova. They're really the same in terms of the content and the level of difficulty. So you're not going to be, disadvantaged compared to students who are 4 years at GMU.
Yeah, I agree with Joe about that, and thanks for the clarification on that.
Yeah, I just want to tack on one thing that Joe said, and I, I'm not disagreeing with him on any rate, but due to the amount of stuff that we had to cover in our early physics classes, 261, 262, the electronics portion regarding like E&M fields and circuitry and stuff, the emphasis on it and really its import was really downplayed, which I don't, well, one, I found out isn't the case, but I also don't think that that's indicative of how it's taught at GMU.
Do you mean how 260 is taught at GMU or how 305 is taught at GMU?
262. 260 and 262.
Oh, 262. Oh, gotcha. Okay, 262 is physics 3, right?
I don't know. I didn't take 262 at JMU.
Yeah, that's physics
Okay.
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one somewhat strange area where there's a little bit of a discrepancy between Nova and GMU courses. So yeah, our physics 262 doesn't really correspond to any particular Nova course, to be honest with you. Yeah, so that's something we should talk about when you're, if you get a chance to talk to an advisor here, we can talk about what you should take optimally to line up with the program when you get here. But our 262 here is not required for the degree though, either for the physics or astronomy degree.
It's only for not like engineering courses or engineering degrees. They really wanted me to take 262. And then I told them, I have a whole degree.
we got that worked out though, right? We got that worked out. But yeah, if you're doing a double major, we can work that out.
You say you have it on file. I'm hoping it's gonna work when we actually submit it.
Yeah, overall, for the general case, I would agree with Joe in that the 100 and 200 level courses are going to be more or less the same. Like for instance, I took differential equations at Nova, and I ended up withdrawing from the course just because I didn't like the professor's teaching methods there. I didn't really learn that much for that particular professor. I took it here at Nova instead of at Nova at GMU when I transferred, and it was the same topic, same material. So for the general case, I do agree with Joe. There are some special cases where things don't quite line up, but those are limited from my experience, at least.
So we touched on this question a little bit with like the physics lounge and the how to find your friend group and everything. But did you have trouble adjusting or feeling like you belonged to your transfer institution? How did you overcome that?
Initially, yes. In that very first semester, it's like, all right, I do know a few people, but they're not in this department. Because all my friends from Nova that transferred to GMU, they were either arts majors or some other major that wasn't physics. So we had almost zero buildings in common. in terms of coursework. So there was that initial discrepancy. But again, because everything's so close knit at the 300 and 400 level courses, that you get to know people pretty quick. Not so much on, I wouldn't say so much that you get super close to people quick, but you get on that acquaintance level relatively quick to the point where you can build that rapport within your first year, I would say.
I was incredibly concerned coming in last fall during COVID and everything, knowing I wouldn't be able to interact face to face with my new peers. And I was very surprised to be invited into the Discord group and being able to use that as a very strong platform to make connections with various students throughout all my classes for the semester. And through that, I know many names now, not necessarily faces because of that, but even like last night, I could instantly message one of my friends now and be like, hey, how are you? How's studying going for that exam? And it's very fluid, surprisingly, even though we don't have face-to-face contact right now.
I mean, yeah, that's like exactly how I got involved in my first semester. Mine was in person because when I transferred over about 2 years ago, and I just immediately asked, like, because almost everyone in there's always like a group chat for a course, or almost always, or like for your year. And there's almost always, before Discord was even really a thing, with online learning, people would still make stuff to be able to discuss and text each other, like how to do the homework, you're stuck on a problem or something. And there's almost always something available, and if not, you can make one. And that's kind of what I did, and I just realized there's already people, and I got involved fairly quickly with everyone. Now it's a little easier to honestly just message, because just to say, even if you don't know anyone, even because it's online, it's fairly easy to just message. There's like a group chat or Discord right away for like a specific course. More than likely, there already is like 3. You can just immediately message each other, and you'll know and be comfortable with people that you're working with, which is extremely useful actually for, even if you, let's say you don't choose to do physics, because there are people that change their mind and you go to another field. A lot of capstones are project based. My engineering degree actually has a team project for my final capstone that has to be a full year design. And I have to design up to 5 people. I already have 3 people that I've never met in person, and they're already part of my engineering design team right now. And we're already designing before we actually get into the class for our capstone. So it's very easy to get involved with people, even if you never met them in person still. You just have to be willing to put the effort, which is kind of hard sometimes too.
I kind of had like the complete opposite experience. So the environment that I came into was very toxic, and I very much felt like an outsider from the beginning. And, you know, many people made it a point to try to make me feel like I shouldn't be here very often. So I love hearing these wonderful stories about like, yes, it was so easy for me to find a group to fit in, but like, in case that's not you and you're struggling, you're not alone. And I like, even if it's just finding one person, that's how I started to get involved at my transfer institution. I found one person that seemed nice, and I was just like, hey, can you help me? Because I really have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know where the buildings are. And it just takes that one person being willing to have a conversation with you. And then eventually, you know, you'll get to know more people like everyone else was talking about and be part of group chats and stuff like that. But in my experience, it definitely wasn't easy. And I kind of had to like keep proving myself pretty much until the day that I graduated. But again, you know, it also just depends on the type of school that you attend and what that student culture is like. I just had no idea what I was getting myself into. But even with that, you know, you have your own resilience and you can persist and make it through. It just definitely helps to have at least a few people that you can kind of like share stories with and make it through together.
And just so my experience was a little similar to Kathryn's. Not people trying to be toxic or anything like that. I never thankfully never had to deal with anything like that. But just because my commute and traffic around these parts, most part, I was in right as class started and had to leave right as class ended. So for a while, I never had that same level of camaraderie while things were in person. But I found that relationships really started to build. We mentioned 305 as being a particularly difficult class. For that same reason, it's also one of those classes that relationships form. I still remember the professor walking in the first time we took one of these tests, and he was like, "This is horrible, guys." And everybody looked at each other and like, "Well, we failed together."
We all suck together, boys.
And then we all got better together. A little bit.
Inch by inch.
Wait, are you guys talking about 305?
Yeah, 305.
All right. Don't scare everyone about 305. I liked it a lot.
Okay.
I didn't have any of that negative enough experience. I'm sorry.
So to give people perspective, a lot of people struggle with different topics. I struggled way more with 301, which is the math stuff. 305 was fairly easy for me, and vice versa. It's very easy to meet someone that like you do well with in one course and not the other course and help each other out. So it's not always a universal struggle that the 305 course will like ruin you. But it is hard if it doesn't click right away. So you might have to put more effort, but that also depends on the person.
All right. And then how did you become familiar with campus, and what parking advice do you have to avoid getting ticketed, to avoid just to know where to park basically that first day?
So I can't give too much advice on the parking because I actually live pretty close to the SciTech campus down in Manassas. So I usually, back before the pandemic, I would take the bus up from SciTech to the main campus. But yeah, I ended up downloading the Mason app so that I could have a map on me because, oh boy, that first semester I got lost quite easily. I ended up just centering my map around the Johnson Center and going like, okay, there's my landmark. Yeah, so I will say with things being mostly online for the upper level courses, definitely makes it less of an issue. But for when we do get back to in-person courses, or for those who will be taking in-person courses, I would definitely recommend just having some form of map on you, be it Google Maps or the Mason app, because I got lost quite easily walking around campus trying to figure out where things were, especially the Krasnov building. Oh boy, that was a journey to find.
Yeah, so I had an orientation meeting with one of my friends, and I got lost for 4.5 hours afterwards trying to find my car. After that, I knew where everything was on campus. But Zach mentioned map. That's a great idea. But regarding to parking, one of the questions was specifically trying to avoid tickets. You used to have about a 2-week grace period to ensure that you had the proper certifications for your car. There's a website that you can buy parking pass for. I don't know if they're still doing that anymore. Like, I know it didn't exist for this semester. Although parking is strange this semester, they're doing a app program that you can temporarily purchase parking for your car for by day. My best advice is to make sure that your parking pass is up to date. They'll get you, and the parking pass people are, just doing their job, but it does suck to get a $60, $80, $100 parking tag on your car.
They're stricter than Nova.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say.
My advice is always it's better to just get whatever parking requirements you need, because the ticket is about as costly. So instead of getting the ticket and spending the exact same amount of money, if not more, you might as well just get the pass or whatever parking credentials are required. I gave this advice as an orientation leader at Nova. I give the same advice here.
And I do recommend purchasing the least amount of parking pass that you can stomach. They get pretty pricey fairly quickly. And if you're okay or, with walking extra, I highly recommend it. The difference between being able to park in any parking lot.
I'm very greedy. I bought the Shenandoah one. Yeah, I bought it because it was very useful. Well, to be fair, you can also, if you park at Rapdeck and Shenandoah, which are the two ends, well, one's in the middle and the other one's at one of the end of the campuses, you have like a free hour to like do whatever you want because there's a guest parking there. And if you want to, that's what I did my very first, before I started the semester, I just went into one of them, found out they have a free hour parking. I parked there and I just walked around campus for a little bit to get an idea where I am from that place. I found I enjoyed way more Shenandoah because it was very easy, or Mason Pond. And from there, just choose the one you want. Honestly, it took me like 2 hours out of my day to figure out which one I wanted to do. And after that, you're kind of set in stone. But yeah, it's way better to buy the parking pass.
And one thing I'll say about the tickets, because I got one because I always forget to put my pass up when I actually had a pass and not like the sticker or whatever. Because there's always stickers at Nova. And at least for some cases, I heard that if you get you get like a one free ticket or whatever per year, per semester, per something, basically. Because I know I went in to go fight it because, of course, I was going to go fight this, and I didn't have to end up paying it. So, and it actually wasn't even a fight. They just told me, oh, of course. So, it's worth trying if you get screwed over once.
Yeah, if you get a parking ticket, like I had a massive one. I think it was $175 at one point because I had an old pass in my thing, and so there's an extra charge for trying to dupe them with an old pass. So I went in and I explained the situation. I have my new pass. It wasn't my intent. We talked it out. I was very calm, very respectful, and they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, like they're not super out to get you. They're just doing their job, like we said before. So they'll be forgiving so long as it doesn't become like a repeat offense. And even then, like they have like it's a once per semester thing. Like you just forgot to do something. It's fine.
Since we're kind of running out of time, I just wanted to ask the final question. Can all you guys go through and kind of give any last advice or last kind of things to watch out for during this process?
So one thing I wanted to bring up that we didn't quite cover in regards to transfer GPA. Keep in mind when you start here at going here. I'm not sure about the advanced program and how that may affect GPA, but for me, just straight transferring from Nova, I started off with a clean slate, and because I didn't do quite as well in 305 as Darwin did, because I struggled with that particular course, I almost got put on academic probation my first semester in just because of that one bad course, because it was only grading my GPA off of 4 courses. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. You're starting off with a clean slate, so your GPA will be solely based off of your GMU courses. Any GPA you had at whatever school you're transferring from, that won't affect your GPA at GMU, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. The one thing that I was I'm glad I did this. I started early on, once I knew that I was coming back to George Mason, to reach out to who my advisor be, which happened to be Joe, and compile a list of all the questions I had beforehand, because there's always going to be more questions after the fact. And starting early is really important as the semester starts up, because other people will definitely be reaching out as well. So that helped give me a leg up, I feel, coming into George Mason, was starting early.
I'd probably say is don't. Oh, my bad, Kyle.
Nope, go right ahead, Darwin.
I was gonna say is don't overwhelm yourself your first semester. So treat it like your freshman year. The big reason why is because you don't know how different the workload might be compared to the courses, at least. I probably would have taken Joe's advice and not taken so many courses. I took like 18 credits my first semester. So it's because I was always used to. I always worked from Nova full time in 18 credits to 15 credits. So I was always very used to working a lot. So when I came here, I reduced my hours for work and I assumed I could handle it. I did. It's a lot more overwhelming. So it would probably have been easier for me to go from 12, see how well I can do, and then from there, adapt and take your workload as you need it to be. That's probably my best advice.
So I'm a big proponent of help getting your classes figured out with the academic advisor, especially if you happen to be transferring during the off season. That makes things complicated with the rotation of classes. Joe is our academic advisor. He is fantastic. He'll tell you exactly what you need to take it, why you need to take it. He'll explain things. And also talk to your teachers. A lot of them, it helps. Part of that is, it helps with getting letters of recommendation. If, later down the line, you're applying for graduate school or you're applying for internships. But also, it opens up some opportunities if you build a rapport for them, with researching, for instance, which is, a phenomenal way to improve your resume. Not that you necessarily are looking at that right now, but later down the line.
Yeah, I would add on to that to definitely keep in touch with your community college professors, because like I was saying, like if you do choose to continue on after your bachelor's, you're going to need letters of rec. And just like as a personal choice for me, I wanted to have someone from every institution I attended to show that like, yeah, I can get stuff done wherever I am. But I think it also helps to ask those same professors if they know either any other faculty members or students that have transferred from your institution to where you're planning on going or applying to, because that can help you have someone to be put in contact with that already knows the area. Because like, yes, you're going there for the classes, but especially if you're having to relocate, it's a completely new city to you and you don't really have your bearings. So just having a student or a faculty member that's trusted and recommended can be really useful. And then for me, when I started at my new transfer school, I think I went like a week or two before classes started. And I don't even know how long I spent on that campus, but like I walked all the way around. I found like the specific classrooms where my classes were going to be. And I tried to like map a route, because like my biggest fear was like not being able to get to class because I didn't know where anything was. So if you have that option, I would really, really recommend it to just walk through campus. And that also helps with parking, finding out like where your approved lots are that you can park at. And like, again, that also depends on the time that you get there, because maybe everything's full, but it helps to at least get your bearings and know where you should be going.
Anything, Joe, anything from you? Any last words?
No, I think everyone hit all the topics that are important. Yeah, good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming so much and sharing your experience and your advice with us. This will be very useful for future incoming students, and we will send this around, Kat, to your contacts at Nova and Miami-Dade. And yeah, thanks for coming, and I will see you guys next week.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Have us.
Take care.